All right. So Harrison
Here we
Crow.
go for 2 minutes.
Yeah, we're going to cut out those first 2 minutes, but Harrison Crow is here. By the way, the last time we did this podcast, I was like, we should do it weekly, and that was like 2 months ago. We haven't done it since. We've talked about it nearly weekly, but we never have done it since then. Since we were last together on the podcast, you came to my birthday get-together, which was very nice. You brought your son, which was fun. Your son, I did the classic like old man thing where I'm like, last time I saw you, you were this big. But it is crazy. Your son is like becoming a bro. Like he's in the mix, dude. He was in like talking shit, and it was very fun.
He will. He will. It's surprised. I had friends over for like the Seahawks Super Bowl, and he was like, "Are you fucking kidding me?" And like my friends were like, "What?"
and he's just spouting Mariners opinions with confidence that he does not deserve to have.
No. So I was like, hey, I'm gonna go talk with Casey today. We want to talk about piggybacking, because that's one of the things that you talked to me about last night. And I was like, do you have opinions on that? I want to know what are the fetch opinions. And he's like, oh man, he's like, it sucks. I hate it, but it kind of works.
Yeah, that's a crazy thing. So if we ever do a weekly podcast, I want to get like because you're a crow, we're going to call it like the Nestlings minute or something like that. Like give him 1 minute of just unfiltered opinion.
Down. 100% I'm down.
Yeah. But we'll start out with that because I think that's like a constant topic. And a thing that's been frustrating to me is that exact opinion. Although I think your son, he has examined it to a point where he realizes it actually is working, where I think most people have not done that and they just assume it's not working because the Mariners their record hasn't been particularly successful during that time. But the pitching staff has been tremendous during that time.
Okay, so there's two valid schools of thought. And I even asked him, I was like, so why do you say that it doesn't work? And he's like, that's just what they say. He's like,
right.
I wish I could go into details. He's like, that's just what I hear.
Did you present him with the stats that I presented you with?
No, because I think that to a degree, I think there's two different. I think there's some validity to the fact that it doesn't work, right? So if you look at the pitchers that have come out, right, they've had piggybacking 4 times. They've piggybacked 4 times. One time, Bryce Miller came out. He's the one that started the second half. Because they don't want to use the word bullpen because that would fucking like offend somebody on such a spiritual level that they would lose, any type of religion. And then the other 3 times was Luis Castillo. Castillo has had 2 legitimately bad experiences. And part of that, I think you look at the XFIP as we kind of went back and forth last night, the XFIP overall looks really good. But the problem is that we exist with a bad fielding outfield and we exist with bad fielders. And so to just be like, well, that's going to happen. No, it can't happen. We have to get strikeouts. We have to get ground balls.
Yeah, but if the XFIP is good, it means that the stuff that's not tied to the fielders is good. So that's actually
okay. Fair.
You do want the
Fair.
XFIP to be good. And theoretically, because they have a bad defense, the ERA should be worse than the XFIP. I think the ballpark is still like pitcher friendly enough. That's still not happening, but yeah, I understand. I want to tell you the 3 reasons I think that people don't like it. And so one thing I will say is I blend the concepts of piggybacking and 6-man rotation. My preference the whole time has been 6-man rotation, although piggybacking has worked pretty well, and at times you could argue 6-man rotation hasn't worked incredibly well, but we could talk about that. I think that the Mariners have proven that to be false. So there's this idea that the 6-man rotation takes innings away from your best pitchers and gives them to your less good pitchers. That's an argument, the 6-man rotation does that, right? Because you get like 1/6 fewer outings out of Brian Wu and Logan Gilbert, right? Sure, if it was Tarek Skubal,
right. We don't have a Tarek Skubal, but keep going.
Sure. I mean, the Mariners have 6 very good pitchers. That's one of the things. Another thing that I saw a lot of is this is just killing the bullpen. This is why Matt Brash got injured. This is causing problems with Andres Munoz. And we could talk about that's I think very obviously not true. And then there's this idea that like the pitchers hate it, so you can't do it. And I think they've all agreed on this either piggybacking or 6-man rotation. I think in the beginning the messaging was pretty obviously bad, but also I don't know that there's a way to try if not quite novel concept, like an unconventional concept, where these pitchers who are creatures of habit and all playing for contracts are just going to immediately jump on board, right? Like they want to be put in a situation where they can make the most money and have the most success they can possibly have. And if you're threatening that, I can understand why they're just not going to react super well. However, they've all agreed to it. It seems like there's at least some harmony. And also, frankly, the guys who stood to lose the most have not pitched that well. Like the Brian Woos and the George Kirbys of the world have not actually. They've put up great peripheral numbers, but they haven't put up like great great outings. And I'm like, so I think that's at least maybe narrowed the gap from the bottom to the top of the rotation in some people's minds. I still think Brian Wu is a way better pitcher than Luis Castillo is at this point. I still think George Kirby's a way better pitcher than Luis Castillo at this point. I think Luis Castillo is the worst starting pitcher in the 6-man rotation, and I think Emerson Hancock's probably the next worst, and it's the chalk that you would expect. I mean, Bryce Miller's been a revelation, but otherwise it's like the rotation is exactly how you'd expect it to be. So
those aren't hot takes. That's very right. Yeah, like every Mariner fan's going to agree with you on that. In that vein, it's the degree at which we think, there's the difference between Luis Castillo and Brian Wu.
Yeah, well, and so the argument that I want to address the bullpen argument, because this has been like a big point of contention. If you have a 6-man rotation, it means you're down one bullpen guy. Except for, and let me pull up the actual numbers right now, but the Mariners are, since May 13th, which is when Bryce Miller came up and created this quasi-problem where the Mariners had too many good pitchers and we've all pretended like that's a problem. The Mariners have the 10th best bullpen in baseball by WAR, but they have pitched the fewest innings in baseball by over 5 innings, by 5 2/3 innings. The next, they've pitched 143 innings. By the way, the most innings pitched by a bullpen are by the Washington Nationals, 238 innings. So almost 100 innings more than the Mariners. The next lowest team has 149 innings. That's the Arizona Diamondbacks, and then Cleveland, Boston, blah, blah, blah. I will say of that, those teams, there doesn't seem to be a correlation necessarily between the fewest bullpen innings and good teams and the most bullpen innings and bad teams. Just the idea that the Mariners are overtaxing their bullpen because of this does not show up in innings pitched. And I'll say to you what I've said on this podcast before, that also does not include the 15, 16 innings that Luis Castillo and Bryce Miller pitched in the bullpen as part of this experiment as quasi-starters that would actually be subtracted from this. So the Mariners bullpen is getting used less than it ever has. As you took a guy away, they're also using it almost 100 innings, almost 100 fewer innings than the Washington Nationals and less than any team in baseball at this point. So to me, that's like fully debunked. They're the 10th best in WAR, despite having the fewest innings, and WAR is benefits from having more innings. Their bullpen is 12th in xFIP, and 3rd in FIP. We'll go look at ERA real quick. ERA, it's 12th or something like that.
And not only that, but I would take it to the other extreme, right? Because they're not pitching as much, they have the highest velocity out of the bullpen in the major leagues in that time. And I think it goes to the argument that they're also fresher and they can throw those bullets. They have more bullets just to kind of spare when they go out there, right?
Yeah, by the way, Andres Munoz, I believe it's now 48 games since this has been in place, and it was 43 before this. So the before Bryce Miller returns is 43 games, 5 additional games in the post-Bryce Miller off the IL period, and Andres Munoz has pitched fewer innings in that period than he did in the 43 before. So it's like, and he might have just evened it out last night, because I know that he pitched yesterday.
Can we talk about the bullpen for a second and the whole issues with injuries? I think we talked about this last time, but I want to rehash it, and I really want to harp on this for a second. The amount of innings that Munoz, that Spire, that Brash threw last year, and keep in mind, Brash was coming off his injury year, right? Like, he was getting healthy last year, and all three of those guys threw a boatload of innings, sure. A lot of innings, enough to where, like, me and a few friends, like, highlighted they're going to have some injuries this year. Like, mark it down. If velocity's down, which Munoz's velocity hasn't been down. In fact, if anything, it's gotten higher with the fewer innings. There is a lot of concerns. Like, I wasn't surprised at Spire. Honestly, I am content to say, hey, Spire, I'll see you like in late August. Deuces, dude, go fishing. Like, we're going to make the playoffs.
Well,
like, you can say, well, we're 80% probable to make the playoffs in Fangraphs. Like, yeah, that's not contingent on Gabe Spire. But guess what?
Certainly it's not only contingent on Gabe Spire, but I think high leverage relievers are going to be a portion of that, and 80% is not 100%.
I understand that. Totally get that. But when it gets to the playoffs, Gabe Spire's role becomes infinitely more important.
Yeah. So I want to talk about Munoz for a second, if you'll let me.
Yeah, go for it.
Because I'm fine with. I get the point you're making. These guys need rest. Brash is going to be out for a long time. Hopefully, when he comes back, everything else about him is fresh, and they're heading into
Spire
the post.
Too.
Spire just pitched the other day. He's healthy right now.
Is he healthy?
Yeah, he threw 100 miles an hour left-handed. That's right.
Oh, I didn't see the velocity clock on Spire.
Yeah, I mean, I think he touched 100, or it was like high 90s. But yeah, I think
I didn't see his outing. I just had like somebody texted me a complaint, so that's all I'm going off of.
So Andres Munoz has had like a tough start to this year, but I'm going to just throw a couple stats at you. It's the highest strikeout rate he's had. Highest strikeouts per 9 he's had since 2021 when the Mariners acquired him, and the highest velocity he's had on average since 2022. He's having the best xFIP of his career since 2022 also, and it's just not showing up. He's had bad luck. He's had a high home run to fly ball rate that I think and I've yet to put together a video on this, and I may never because it's just such a boring topic, but every pitcher in the Mariners rotation and Andres Munoz himself have all shifted their pitch mix away from ground ball inducing pitches. So all these guys are doing this with, one, they have a bad outfield, but the batting average on balls in play for fly balls to the outfield is significantly lower than ground balls to the infield, and the infield's really bad. By the way, I thought that Colt Emerson was going to be a big reprieve from the problems that J.P. Crawford has. Yeah. Him, Cole Young, and J.P. Crawford are all like in a clump of dudes, just the weakest armed, the weakest throwing velocity infielders in all of baseball. And I think that's going to be something that the Mariners, I think it's a potential problem with the long-term prospects of having Colt Emerson and Cole Young in the same infield, is that neither one of those dudes really throw like a shortstop, and nor do they throw like a third baseman. So you got to figure something out.
Something with Munoz that I think is really interesting is, yeah, you're absolutely right. Like, all his peripherals show he's pitching fine. Like, I'm not worried about him. What I am a little worried about is his slider is so unhittable right now. So unhittable. It is by far the best pitch that he has, that his fastball has, at least early on in the season, less so lately, but his fastball was getting to be, he wasn't throwing it for a ball. He was throwing it so much in the zone, you had guys just basically waiting. Like, we're going to sell out for the slider. If it's a slider, I can't hit it anyway, so I'm not going to worry about it. So you had guys just sitting on his fastball, just tuned up for his fastball. And because he was so consistently in the zone with his fastball, guys were just basically raking on it. And that's my theory on why he started having some issues, was he just became a little bit more predictable with the fastball. I think he's gotten away from that lately. And I think that's helped. I think also juicing, he's up to that extra. Like seriously, you start hitting triple digits and things just start falling off the table. Like people's ability to start driving the ball just starts going away.
I think that's something that I've seen people talk about. I'm going to tell you, not to just be like a actually guy, but highest outside of the zone swing rate since 2022 and the lowest.
Is it his fastball?
This is on all pitches, the full pitch mix. But so the overall performance.
It's a slider.
So, but listen though, the overall performance is he's throwing his slider a little bit more than he did last year, not very much more. But the outside swing percentage has jumped from 30% to 36%, and the contact percentage on outside swings has fallen from 41.7% to 38.1%. My point is you may see these things and there's a game theory argument for what you're saying, but it's not showing up in the numbers. They're swinging more on balls outside the zone and hitting them less than they were.
I'm just saying I'm seeing like his run value for his fastball was way down. It's only it's only marginally negative now. His sinker is marginally negative, which I don't think really I think he throws the fastball and it's just being caught up in two different ways. But his run value is negative in both his sinker and his fastball. And so if you look at that and then you actually take a look at some of the data and you look at where his fastballs are actually being located, they're very much in the zone. Now they're on the peripheral, and that's mostly so because he's trying to tunnel that slider. But
sure.
That's my thought process. So you can say that he throws a lot out of the zone. I would say that's majority sliders, but being that we don't have a breakdown, I'd have to sit there and count it, and I'm not really.
I'll be damned if I'm not trying to create one right now. It's possible that you're right, but regardless, I think. I have never this whole season been really worried about Andres Munoz.
No.
He's been roughly the same pitcher, if not arguably a better pitcher. I think that like guys have certainly had a higher barrel rate on him, but it's like small sample, early season stuff, not stressed about it. All the indicators lead to him actually having a better season, and so I'm not stressed about that. And then the final thing is we've started to see these Mariners starting pitchers really thrive. Like we've seen guys go into the seventh and into the pitch into the eighth inning more often, and because of that, that's part of the reason why we're seeing the bullpen not pitch as many innings. And so I think that if you can make that trade off where it's like the guys you're giving what would have been bullpen innings. You're actually taking those innings and handing them to your starters, or you're handing them to Luis Castillo as your sixth starter. You're really taking innings from your top five best pitchers, maybe top 5 of 6 best pitchers if you think Munoz belongs in that top 5, and then you're handing it to your 7th best pitcher instead of Alex Hoppe or somebody like that, like somebody that's at the bottom of the bullpen that maybe is going to spend, and so like to me. There's this, it's a very obvious choice. Now, not every team can do it because most teams don't have 6 viable starting pitchers. The Mariners have this logjam, and it's only going to get, I'm going to say worse, even though I don't believe worse, because I don't think this is a problem. That's the thing that's been frustrating to me the whole time is people talk about this like it's a problem. It's not a problem. It's an absolute luxury to have 6 starting pitchers, and maybe Luis Castillo ends up in the bullpen in the postseason, but so will probably Emerson Hancock. And we might have texted about it last year. I wanted the Mariners to use Emerson Hancock more in the. He's a guy that's
like it's can we talk about that? That was a criminal misuse in the playoffs to where they had issues legitimately to where they're throwing Lazaro out there 4 straight days. I mean, that's really what ended up killing them in the end. The fact that they didn't use Hancock, and Hancock already was showing so good. In his one Detroit appearance, he was really lights out. It was stupid, the fact that they didn't give him at least a couple batters. At least.
So where are you at on, because I know like Dan Wilson went from being a darling in Seattle as a manager. Obviously, he comes in.
I think we all thought that move was stupid. Like you thought, he's there to, he's a figurehead.
Yeah, so like philosophically, I probably agree with Scott Service more. But I like, it's hard to deny what Dan Wilson's results have been, and then as he's stopped getting results, I don't really think it's his fault or he's making like constant tactical errors, but he's going to shoulder the blame. And so like
he makes a lot of bad bullpen choices.
Yeah, that's fair. I think that's fair.
I think that I think that's the one thing that becomes really difficult to plan for from an analytical standpoint. Like if I'm sitting in the office the night before the game or the day before, and I'm trying to give him direction on how to handle the bullpen, I think that's really difficult because you have to consider so many different situations and situations that I don't think that we necessarily all expect. Like some of these guys, and you talked about like Kirby, man. Kirby has been crazy because in one inning, he will strike out the side and he'll be touching 98 and you just be looking golden, right? And then the next inning, he will just crash and burn. Mm-hmm. And it's so frustrating. So you can think, oh man, he's in the fifth inning with like 60 pitches, no problem. He's going 7 innings, no problem. And that's 6 innings, he just freaking self-destruct. Right. And so it becomes really difficult to really game plan. And because of that, I don't feel they've done enough to really coach him up or at least make good decisions in those moments because he's very much not making good tactical decisions with bullpens.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that I loved like everything Scott Service did in that regard. I think I'm kind of ambivalent to the idea that the manager has a measurable, I'm not saying he doesn't have an impact, but like in things that I feel like I can speak with authority on, I just don't think that I can speak with authority on what Dan Wilson is or is not good at or where he's failing and succeeding. I think at the end of the season last year, it's hard to argue that he wasn't a major impactful part of that because you had an A to B test, right? Like we saw what Scott Service did with roughly the same roster, and then Dan Wilson gets them within one game of the World Series. So it's
almost on vibes. Like right. Let's say what it is.
And fuck it up constantly. Like he made the same mistakes last year. They just either worked out better or weren't critical. Like he wasn't great at bullpen management last year, I didn't think.
Oh no, he was terrible.
Right. Yeah, so that's to me like I'm not like, I literally don't care if Dan Wilson is or is not the manager. If they fired him tomorrow, I'd be like, okay, yeah, hopefully the next guy does, gets you that 1 or 2% that I think is potentially different. But I just don't like, I have no, people will call for Dan Wilson's head. And I've seen people that are like, I saw a very funny thing that a guy like canceled his membership until Dan Wilson, his Mariners TV membership until Dan Wilson got fired. It's like, all right, dude, I don't know what this. You're not sending a message to the team. They don't give a shit. They won't cut the contract of like Mitch Garver last year. They're gonna, or Mitch Haniger at multiple points. They're not gonna worry about Dan Wilson because you canceled your $20 a month.
No, they're not. And here's the thing, right? Is you kind of nailed it. Like we're talking 1 or 2%, really, in win probability that he affects. And I do think matchups is important. I do think like bullpen usage, especially when it comes to like, okay, who am I going to use tomorrow? Who is available now? That stuff he's not making those decisions. He's being given a card and saying these are the guys that you have to choose from today.
Yeah, I think he's like, would you rather have a manager who was perfect tactically or a roster that's deep so that he can barely make a wrong decision? And I think that's kind of what the Mariners have, is like, especially going into the playoffs when hopefully they take Castillo and Hancock and turn them into leverage options alongside Cade Anderson and maybe Ryan Sloan. And you're like, well, he's got 6 options. You don't think Ryan Sloan? No?
I get the greediness. I love the greed. That feels too much. Like Cade Anderson has pitched in the College World Series. He's pitched leverage innings. Sloan is really exciting, very, very tantalizing from a pitcher, especially watching some of the minor league games that he pitches. There's just a level of polish on him that you just wouldn't expect. I think that's too greedy. And I think at a certain point in time, okay, take him on the travel squad, right? Like, I think that's an option to where you can like take him on the travel squad and he can like kind of figure things out and kind of like be what it's like to be on a major league team, especially when he comes up. The Mariners have every right to be like, hey, look, you're going to be starting in a pitching staff that demands to go to the playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
So there's going to be that expectation, but no, I think that's too greedy.
Yeah, I got greedy. I'm sorry. The point is, though, I think you're like replacing 3 of the guys at the bottom of the bullpen with 3 guys who could be starters in nearly every rotation in baseball. And so you have these guys that throw hard, get strikeouts, miss bats, and can pitch multiple innings. I don't think Dan Wilson can make that bad of a choice in the postseason because he's going to have those guys plus Jose Ferrer, Gabe Spire, Eduard Bizardo, and Andres Munoz. Like, at some point, you're like, what does he have? 2 bad choices he can make in that bullpen then? And those guys are going to be who? I'm looking at the bullpen to try to figure out who's going to be the next, who's going to be pitchers 12 and 13 in the postseason if they don't acquire another leverage reliever, or you are right and they refuse to. Oh, Matt Brash, I guess wasn't even factoring in Matt Brash. So I think that's like kind of my opinion of Dan Wilson is like I think that if you gave Scott Service the same roster and a playoff berth with theoretically like home field advantage in a series, I don't know that I think either of those guys are that much different, but so I guess I don't spend any time thinking about Dan Wilson ultimately. Grow the mustache back. Everybody grow your mustaches back. That's what I say.
Alex Hoppe, are you worried about him at all? What are your thoughts generally on him? And I ask you that because he's missing bats. Mm-hmm. His FIP and his xFIP is really solid. His ERA is abhorrent.
I'm looking at that too. I mean, I just think he's like a generic big league reliever. Like there's every organization now has several of these guys that throw in the mid and upper 90s and really can't, clamp down a spot on a big league staff. And I think that if he becomes a guy who bucks that and he's like actually a contributor, if he's the 13th guy in the bullpen and he pitches to his FIP and xFIP, like I'm stoked. Like that means you have a pretty damn good bullpen. If he's the 13th pitcher on the staff, the whatever he would be, like the 7th guy, no, the 9th guy in the bullpen, great. That's I think typically you'd expect that guy in a postseason bullpen to be someone who eats some innings because maybe it's a guy that comes in when you're way down. But I don't, I certainly see the promise you're talking about, and he's averaging almost 98 miles an hour on his fastball. There's peripheral numbers that suggest he'd be good. I haven't looked at any StatCast stuff. And I do think that this is a guy that the Mariners like have classically turned into, like, this guy could be the closer in 2 years, or he could be out of baseball in 2 years. Like, that's there's a wide range of potential outcomes for a guy like Alex Allen.
Well, he's super controllable too, right?
Sure.
Like, this is his first major league season. He spent a lot of time in Boston and everything, but like he's been somebody's a 6th round pick, like, that just kind of had a live arm that Boston curated, Seattle got. He's exactly that. He's exactly an interesting arm, another arm for the pile that Seattle really does a good job of collecting.
Yeah, I agree. So I think that we're like a couple weeks away from the trade deadline. I don't necessarily think there's anything exciting to talk about. I did see MLB Trade Rumors put out their top 35 trade guy, and I will say a guy that I still think makes a ton of sense, and I especially think he's a guy that could be had for literally like cash considerations at this point, is Willie Castro, who I'm going to obsess about till the day I die. He's my new John Jaso, a guy who would very obviously have been a better outcome for the Mariners this year than Brendan Donovan, who's been injured, and then going into the season with one of the worst defensive outfields in baseball, one of the worst defensive. If I said infield, I also mean outfield. If I said outfield, I mean infield. And he plays both those positions. He can, capably play center field on a team where, like, a couple nights ago, Luke Raley, when Julio Rodriguez got hurt, Luke Raley had to be the center field. That is a bad place for your franchise to be. Victor Robles is a good backup center fielder. He's probably not a good center fielder anymore, but he's like a good backup. That's a good guy to have as a backup. If Luke Raley's out there, you have roster problems. Like he's a bad right fielder. He's a bad left fielder. He should not be playing center field.
So this is probably a larger conversation, but I'm kind of curious of what your thoughts are with the amount of defensive substitutions and defensive outfielders that have no bat but are playing more and more innings because, especially late in the game, you have them on your bench and they're getting more and more innings. Do you think that affects how we look at the defense of most starting outfielders?
I don't know if I quite understand what you're saying. I think that the Mariners have so many holes defensively, and also so many of the guys who are playing those spots are also some of the team's best hitters this year. So like Randy Arozarena obviously has hit incredible, and he's a horrible defensive left fielder. Dominic Canzone, you and I have argued a ton about off microphone, and I'm coming around to you that he might actually be a very good hitter. I've this idea that he should be the not like a non-platoon DH. I disagree with. I've seen other people come to this conclusion besides you and the boy.
I've been on this for a while. I've been on this for a while. Like, this isn't people have been tweeting it out, and I saw it, and I'm like, that's my freaking stats. Why are people like? Why is there 1,000 likes on that when I say it last week and a month ago?
I know.
Damn. Anyways,
I know. I've seen people with your exact talking points. I mean, I think like. The Mariners are in an interesting spot because I think that there's no spot where they are so bad. Like last year, you're like Eugenio Suarez going to third base and Josh Naylor at first base. It was places where you had these massive voids, just these black holes. They don't have that anymore. They have like every position where someone's bad defensively, they're a pretty good hitter, right? Like J.P. Crawford is still a very good hitter. Luke Raley's been great. Dominic Canzone's been great. Randy Arozarena's been great. Josh Naylor has not been incredible, but he's signed for 5 more years, and the Mariners will never do anything to he's going to play first base until the wheels fall off, no matter what. No matter how much his teammates actually hate him.
Here's the thing about Naylor, and I get it. I definitely do. Like, I'm disappointed with the season that he's had. Like, I can totally admit that. And I really think the fact that he doesn't strike out and he puts the ball in play becomes more and more valuable, especially in 1 and 3 and 5 and 7 game series where you have smaller windows. Just making contact becomes such a more prominent thing.
And you're probably also facing more often pitchers who have like elite strikeout stuff. So I'm like, I was skeptical of them signing a guy with that body type. I still have got, I mean, I don't think he's done anything to disprove the idea that he probably won't look great at the end of those 5 years.
Yeah, probably.
But yeah, I mean, obviously, I don't think he's the weakest part of the team. So I think the problem with what I'm laying out, the problem is that there's not like a really easy, like I think going out and acquiring Matt Chapman, who just went on the IL, but if you go out and acquire Matt Chapman, he's a huge upgrade defensively and a huge upgrade offensively. You figure out what to do with JP, or maybe, I hate to say this, but maybe you start toying with the idea of sending Colt Emerson down for a little while to take what he's learned and continue his development out of the spotlight, with the idea that he'll certainly be on the postseason roster. You're not going to have him. You're not going to have Miles Mastrobuoni on the roster and not have Colt Emerson on the roster. And so then the Mariners have also, like, I think that trade would make sense. Outside of Matt Chapman, who they won't acquire because he makes too much money, probably. I don't know that there's a great option. Like, your son brought up Seiya Suzuki, and I think there's a potential, if you could do like Seiya Suzuki for Luis Castillo, something close to straight up, maybe with just money going back to Chicago or maybe no money going to Chicago, I think that I'd be like, what a great old school trade. Suzuki, by the way, right-handed hitting, bad defensive outfielder. Like they just can't escape these guys.
But like, who out there? Who is the perfect right fielder right now? Like, let's say you have infinite money to be like, hey, I'm going to give you $1 billion for that player.
Well, he's not the perfect
Judge.
He's probably not the perfect right fielder, but he's probably the perfect left fielder. And you just figure out what to do with Randy. But you and I have talked about him. Like, if the opportunity to acquire Mike Trout comes around, that's the only guy I'm trading a massive haul of prospects. We don't need to spend a whole bunch of time on that because it's so unrealistic. But I think he would be a tremendous addition.
If the Angels weren't crazy,
yeah,
literally they are batshit crazy. Like nothing they do makes sense.
Yeah,
they are just as likely to be like trade him for $500 in a bag of balls as they are to be like, give me your top 10 prospects for him.
Yeah, I know. So that, yeah, I think that's like, I mean, I think that Byron Buxton would make sense, but he wants to retire a Twin and doesn't want to leave Minnesota.
The one thing I will say that becomes really interesting with Trout is they have a new general manager, right? There are going to be some tough decisions, and I know it's probably not true, but my thought process is they put somebody in there in that position that's like, okay, my job is to win. I know what my owner is Art Monroe is like. Otherworld cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs.
Artie Moreno, not Art Monroe. Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry, Moreno.
You just did Latin erasure, I believe.
Yeah, I did. It's fine. Nobody listens to your podcast. It's just us. But let's say like he just is like, okay, Artie, you go play, go eat your crayons. You're fine. And like, look. I don't think it's crazy that he doesn't look at this and say, how can I make this team better? And the best way I do that is by making some deadline moves that are unpopular. And maybe Mike Trout opens up. Now, I don't think that's going to be to the Mariners. I don't believe that at all.
Kind of on both sides, right? Because they don't want to see Mike Trout come back to L.A. several times a year. And they also... Like the Mariners aren't going to want to give Kate Anderson to
or Montes or
yeah. Well, let's talk about those guys instead of Mike Trout because we're in like dream territory that's never going to happen. Laz Montes and Michael Arroyo just got called up or just got promoted to AAA. Exciting for me and you. We live close to the Rainiers, so we can go watch.
Go out there.
We should go out there. That's a great idea. Do a little scouting with a couple beers in our hands, or cider in your case. But I hate to be the like constant.
You do not like Laz, do you?
No, I mean I like him. He has no position. He's he's left-handed and he has no position. And Michael Arroyo, these guys they're both bad defenders. Like I'm fine with Laz. I'm fine. No, it's the minor leagues. No, they're going to go. I'm saying people are going, this is the precursor to them coming up to the big leagues. And Arroyo bats right-handed. And so it's like obvious the Mariners need a right-handed impact bat and they need, better defense around the infield. And he's not going to be that. He might be a right-handed bench option, but he's not going to be that. You're looking like I'm wrong about Laz. That's my
no. I've been coaching the boy on this for a while. Like this is like talking points that he and I go back and forth, and he's like, but he's fine. He made that amazing catch, and I was like, yeah, because he took a terrible route.
Right.
He made that catch because it was a terrible route. Like we've had these conversations. No, the thought process was Arroyo coming off the bench, and my fear is. That he's not going to hit major league pitching good enough.
Sure.
Like he only has a 16.5% strikeout rate down in AA. That's really what I wanted to look up. That's not bad. That's not terrible. It's decent. Arroyo off the bench. I can see that possibly happening, especially when it comes from a cheap perspective. I hate bringing up prospects in August. What's
as opposed to bringing them up earlier or in September?
I would rather prospect break with the team out of spring training than I would to bring up a prospect in August or September.
Interesting. And what's the reason for that?
Oh, it becomes time. Like in terms of what are they going to actually contribute in that short amount of time? It's a low probability that they're actually producing positive win rates or positive value.
Yeah.
That's not to take anything away from these guys being talented. They're uber talented, but I think the adjustment period is so challenging. I would rather have that time in April, May, June, July. Like, hell, call them up now. If that's the expectation, is Arroyo is gonna come off the bench and be that right-handed batter, bring him up now, start getting him at bats. Otherwise, he's not going to adjust to major league pitching, and he's not going to be able to do that.
I think I agree with you.
That's my opinion.
I think that if either one of these guys were average defenders, I think defense is one thing that you can call up and have it be like good right away. And then you go like, he's a 9-hitter, but he's a league average third baseman. Fine. But yeah, he's not a good defender. Bringing him up in August or September and being like, hit major league pitching in 4 plate appearances a week, that's not fair to him. It's not probably good for his development. I will say it's possible that these guys are getting called up because it looks really good when you're like, we have these 2 21-year-olds in AAA that we're willing to trade you for a player. Like maybe this is if they come up and both succeed. Because by the way, I mean, this is like a crazy stat line that Montes has put up in AA in Arkansas, in I believe a pitcher's ballpark.
Yes. Yep.
25 home runs, almost a 16% walk rate, 30% strikeout rate, which is not going to get better in the big leagues right away anyway. But he's also like a 317 isolated power. He's had last year he had a 263 isolated power. I mean, if he had a 200 isolated power in T-Mobile Park, that's elite. That's elite stuff in that ballpark. If you're not named Cal Raleigh, it's like, I mean, that's about as good as it gets. And if he can exceed that, that's even better. I think that my guess is his bat's probably a little bit further away than Arroyo's is. I'm going to give you, and I don't think I'm the first to come to this comparison, but in just looking him up the last couple days, this has Carlos Pagero vibes to me big time, where it's like not a good defensive outfielder, but this athletic freak that just hits for like impossible power.
Greg Hallman. Carlos Pagero was an athletic freak. He wasn't. Greg Hallman makes a lot more.
Oh, I think I wish we had sprint speed with when Carlos Pagero was around, because I think he actually was. Greg Hallman's interesting, but Greg Hallman was a very good defensive center fielder.
Yeah, that's fair. No, that's fair.
And I think that Pagero was built like a linebacker.
He was. I saw him lots down in AA when he would come to Montgomery.
Oh, sure.
I saw him quite a bit down there. It's an interesting comparison. I think Montes' bat is better. I think he has about the same bat to ball contact, but I think he just has better vision of what he's swinging at. Does that make sense?
Meaning you think he's better at like taking bad pitches? Is that kind of gotcha?
Yeah. I think that the stuff he's missing at is stuff in the zone. I haven't looked that up. I'm just going off of the at-bats that I've kind of spot checked and stuff.
Yeah. I mean, so like Pagero as a 23-year-old in AA was lower walk rate. I don't know if that was Arkansas back then. I don't think it was. But maybe it was.
So one of my buddies texted me the other day, and actually he gave the Willie Mo Pena reference. He said he makes him think of Willie Mo Pena. He's like both in a good way and in a bad.
Yeah, that's interesting.
So I thought that was an interesting comp.
Yeah, Willie Mo is 6'3", 260, so a little shorter and a little heavier and right-handed, obviously. But yeah, that's an interesting one. That's a DH only guy that played too much outfield. I've also heard the stuff about Laz, and not that I would make this the only reason I would trade him, but if you were gonna try to convince yourself that it was a hedge, is that basically his body can't last. Like he's too big in the lower half, and it's just gonna tear his knees apart at some point. And whether that means that he becomes Like Adam Dunn would be another. I think it's really easy to confine Montes to these Latin prospects, but also like Adam
David
Dunn
Ortiz,
or Chris Davis.
I think his ceiling
Ortiz,
I know you were gonna laugh at that, but his ceiling is Ortiz. His ceiling is Ortiz. Just from a body perspective, I think it makes a lot of sense. Is he going to hit the 99th percentile? No. He's probably going to be about 80% of what you're expecting or what you're hoping out of that. And so maybe that's closer to Adam Dunn.
Top of your head, what do you think David Ortiz's career strikeout rate was?
Oh, it was probably much lower. 17%?
17.3.
16%? What?
17.3.
Okay,
pretty good.
Yeah.
Pretty good. Yeah, no, that's... I mean, I don't think he's David Ortiz. I'd love it if he was David Ortiz, but I just don't think it's... you're talking Hall of Fame, like one of the all-time great hitters. I don't think... Maybe all-time great power hitters. I say Chris Davis.
Okay, that's fair.
The best years of Chris Davis, Adam Dunn, those kinds of guys. That like Chris Davis
Dunn
also
just had
played
no value though.
Joey Gallo.
Joey Gallo is a decent shout. Adam Dunn just had zero value.
Hold on, I'm gonna prove you wrong. This whole thing is just us Googling against each other.
It really is. It's you showing me how shitty my memory really is.
Adam Dunn certainly had down years, though. I will say that he was worth 5.5 wins almost in 2004. He had some good seasons, 25 career wins. Certainly no defense.
He had 3 seasons. 4 seasons.
Here's a funny stat: negative 252.8 runs defensive value, which. Bad first base, bad outfielder, DH, I think by the time he made it over to the American League, but yeah, wow. Okay, so I think that like...
Adam Dunn's a great value. That's ceiling. Okay, I'll give you that.
The exasperation of being a Mariners fan where they have no like they're too good at the positions they're bad at to be able to make a huge improvement anywhere. So then you're like, do you give up Cade Anderson for a half-win improvement? No. And so I think like the people are going to be ready to throw the prospects away, and I'm definitely a guy who wants to hold on to prospects more than other people, but I'm not.
I'm actually prepared to. I would be ready to ship George Kirby out at the trade deadline more than Cade Anderson.
Who is like? What name could make you trade George Kirby though? That's kind of the challenge.
No, there isn't anybody. That's the problem, right? Nobody that's out there that really is for being moved that's on the market, right? Especially, and this is what sucks, is like we're up against a very big. They're redoing all the rules for this next season, so that changes so much of how valuable a lot of guys under contract are going to be, because you might be losing a year, right? You might be going down to 5 years instead of 6, which means that Luke Raley becomes infinitely less valuable because he's going to be hitting his fifth year next year, 4th year. So, sure. I mean, just like guys that are it's like, okay, I have 2 years of control on this guy or 3 years of control.
Mm-hmm.
Well, now you have less, right? So you kind of don't want to get burned on some of that stuff. So even trying to utilize big league players at this point in time, people aren't really wanting to move their assets because they don't really know what those assets are going to look like next year.
The only way I could see George Kirby or anyone but Luis Castillo being traded is in a 3-way deal where the prospects, like the Mariners trade George Kirby to a team that trades prospects to a team that trades a hitter to the Mariners, basically. If you did, because like theoretically, maybe the Giants would be into Kirby for Matt Chapman. I'm not even saying that's a deal I would make. I'd have to think about that quite a bit. But what's more realistic is, since they're trying to cut payroll, I think would be like you trade George Kirby to the Cubs, who trade a bunch of prospects to the Giants, who then trade Matt Chapman to Seattle. As an example, if anyone of the 4 people that'll listen to this, don't get caught up in the idea of me saying George Kirby for Matt Chapman. I'm not saying George Kirby for Matt Chapman directly, though I actually think that's probably less bad of a trade than you'd expect. But Go ahead.
Only guy that I would trade Cade Anderson for, or like Sloan, is like Corbin Carroll type. If you really wanted to get like really frisky and wanted to just absolutely blow stuff out of the water, like, okay, let's do it. Let's unload the minor league system then.
Yeah, so I'm gonna real quickly take a look at the players. So playoff odds right now, the Diamondbacks still are expected to have like a 16% chance to make the playoffs. That's probably low enough to sell. We're starting to see teams like but the problem is low enough to sell, still 44 and 45. How far out of a wild card spot are they?
Like they're not going to sell.
They're only
like I wouldn't sell like that. Why would you sell? Especially if the chances next year. Who cares about the rest of this year?
Yeah.
Next year you could be in it, right? With the right couple of moves, like all of a sudden everything changes. Like, so it's not even that you're out of it this year. Like, I think people have been too dramatic about the fact that, oh, you're not going to win it this year. Why wouldn't you sell? Because they got these guys under control for so long. Why would they? They have such a great chance next year. They could get a couple of players, somebody develops, and you're able to flip them, or hell, that he's able to be used in the major leagues. You really believe in your development team?
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, I think you look at the bottom of the wild card standings in the National League. It's Rockies, Giants, Mets, Reds, and then it's like the Nationals are 3 games out. The Padres are 4 games out. Diamondbacks 4 games out. Like I don't think maybe the Reds are the cutoff where teams are obviously at least considering selling. And in the American League, it's like even tighter. It's the Angels and the Royals are 9.5 and 8.5 games out, and then the Tigers, who seem intent on trading Tarek Skubal, and then at that point probably fall even further out of the race. So like those 3 teams are selling, but like I don't know, they have anything that the Mariners are buying unless like I said, Willie Castro is the cheap, like I think Willie Castro is actually the kind of move the Mariners would make, which is this what seems like kind of a fringe move, though he's a switch hitting, plays everywhere pretty well, decent hitter who's at one point I looked recently and he was like 100 WRC plus, and he's been in a little bit of a slump lately. I do monitor Willie Castro more than I don't think anyone else knows. His own parents don't know he's in Major League Baseball still, and I'm like checking his box score, like what did Willie Castro do today?
One of the few players that I think that you could try for from the Tigers would be like Spencer Torkelson. But sure. Like I don't think, again, it comes down to like what type of asset do you think he's going to be over the next couple of years, right? He's arbitration eligible next year, which means he's got 3 more years, which is what you're going to have to pay for, and then you go into next season and you only have 2 of those instead of 3 after you paid for 3. I don't know, man. I don't see the market adjusting for what the reality is going to be next year. And so I think teams are just going to end up losing value on some of these guys.
So Corbin Carroll is interesting to me. I mean, he should be interesting to everybody. 25 years old, signed for a long time. Signed until I think 2030 or something like that. Like Cade Anderson plus what would you give up for Corbin Carroll? Would you go Cade Anderson, Laz, and Arroyo?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Heartbeat. Yes.
I would too.
Yes. I think Sloan would be the only question, just because I think Sloan is like Roger Clemens-esque, David Cone-esque.
Whoa.
I think he's the ace that we want Brian Wu to be.
So you value Sloan over Anderson?
Yes.
Oh, interesting. I would be significantly the opposite, but that's interesting to hear.
I think Anderson has a higher floor for sure. For sure. Cade Anderson's going to come up and immediately be an impact on.
Sure.
Sloan, like, you flip a coin, dude. He's got electric stuff. He might be good for a year, and then all of a sudden make a mechanic, and he's throwing 94 miles an hour.
Would that be the biggest ass staff, or the biggest ass battery in the battery of asses? Would it be the biggest battery of asses? Him and Cal Raleigh together. All right, I gotta go. You gotta go. Probably. Real quickly, do you have an opinion on the retraction, rescinding, the delay, the suspended sentence of that?
It feels. I need to send you the clip that I saw. That it was like, look, corruption is bad unless I'm involved.
You did send me that, I think. Actually.
Did I send you that? Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
We're talking about the U.S. men's national team. If you don't know, and Harrison is a co-founder of American Soccer Analysis, along with, I don't know what else you've done, other stuff related to soccer.
I've done lots of stuff. Yeah,
too much stuff.
Probably.
There was one other question I had, but I don't think that this will get released after, so you can either prove you'll either look like a genius or a goat, and not the kind of goat used to be a bad thing. What's your prediction for the match tonight?
So I actually called this matchup about a month and a half ago when ASA we did our pre-podcast, and I said I had the U.S. winning, and I looked like a complete fool at that time. And it's funny how much that's changed, because I said at the time, Belgium looks old. They look old, and that's not a knock on them. They had a golden generation that just couldn't get it done. This is like legitimately, Belgium is so very, very talented. They're going to need something special, especially late in that second half, because Romelu Lukaku has looked amazing every time he's come on. Lukaku is one of the biggest difference makers in the world, and the fact that they have him just coming off the bench in the 80th minute, 70th minute, if they really think his legs can hold up to that. And that's kind of where the problem is. It's like his fitness just isn't there like it used to be. And so trying to have him in a summer tournament running around for 90 minutes is just not going to happen. And so they have him coming off the bench, which is just amazing, because he's one of the best scorers in Europe, and has been for a decade. So it's going to be a really big challenge. They have a really good team front to back. So I called the U.S., but that was mostly just to be an ass and to be like we record with a Canadian, and he's had the U.S. getting grouped. So it was just me to be the opposite and say we're going to get to the semifinals, which is just asinine. And yet here we are, and there's a really good probability, especially with playing at home. The U.S. and any tournament in general, any team in a tournament that gets to play at home like this has a tremendous advantage. And why? We don't know. There is no home field advantage in almost any sport, and yet in soccer there is a tremendous amount of advantage. And it could be from cards, it could be from so many, how the referee calls the game. No one really has defined what is the advantage, but we can see statistically there is, especially in international play, there is an advantage, about a half a goal advantage. So, which seems like, oh, it's a half a goal, that's like an extra coin flip.
It's a pretty big difference in soccer.
It's huge.
Yeah.
It's actually relatively big.
I think that the time zone difference has to be a pretty big part of it, and it makes sense to me that it would be more pronounced in international play because of that. Because, you got these guys who are playing at, maybe 10 p.m., midnight, their body clock, and they're, it's 5 p.m. here, and yeah. All right, well, I'm going to go prepare my family to hear me yelling at soccer for 2 hours, and then probably roughly 2 hours, and maybe never again after that, depending on how it goes. And this will post tomorrow. You'll look like a genius or a moron.
Regularly, it's a moron, so I'm all right with that. I'm okay with it.
All right, and then we'll consider weekly with the Nestling Minute as part of.
Do it.
Yeah, all right. Maybe I just do a podcast with him. Just go straight to the source, dude.
I think that would be incredibly interesting. Just
For
from
you
the
only,
standpoint
probably.
of you would get like the highest highs and the absolute lowest lows.
I know the amount of times I'd be just like his like hormonal, like puberty body freaking out, or I'd have to be like, calm it on down. You know, like the. Yeah.
I think halfway through it, he might just get it like on his phone and just like be like, "Oh, are we still doing this?"
Yeah, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3 eyes on me. All right, all right. I'll talk to you later.
All right, bye.
Bye.